Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. And it's Monday. It's July 2nd. This will be our chart lesson for today. And real quickly, a couple of housekeeping things before we get started on the chart lesson. Uh, July 4th holiday is coming up. So tomorrow the market closes at noon, and Wednesday the market closes at noon. So those are basically holidays. It looks like there's regular trading on Thursday. However, I will not be here on Thursday. I'm going to take the rest of the week off. I'm going to go down the Gulf Coast and do some deep sea fishing down there for the next few days, and so I probably won't be back until the weekend. So this is going to do it for the week. Really short, quick week. Um, Hope everybody has a great holiday and a safe holiday, and we'll be back the following Monday, which will be, let's see what the following Monday, which will be July 9th. So we'll be back to regular chart lessons on July the 9th. So um, I will have access to email to some degree, so I would ask that, like usual, that you hold any questions about trades and things like that. But if you got an emergency or you just have to get a hold of me, you can email me, and I probably won't read my email but once a day or so. But I'll check my email each day just to make sure there's nothing, no emergencies out there, or anything crazy like that. But otherwise, hope everybody has a great holiday, and we'll be back a week from today. But let's look at the chart lesson. We started out in this tight range here. We're going sideways, and really I was looking at the highs up here, the lows down here, and this looks like a nice midline, which came into play a couple more times during the day. But we were going sideways. You couldn't deny later that there was a two-tiered channel working higher here, but you couldn't really confirm that until after 9 o'clock when we bounced here. And then really you couldn't get a good confirmation on the upper side until we bounced here. It was reasonable to expect it was here, but until it turned down there again, it was kind of hard to say. So it was a little slow getting started this morning. There was a trade early on, right around 7 o'clock, and then you just had to kind of sit patiently here. This one is a possibility. I didn't mark it. I'll go ahead and make it green, but I'll explain why I don't like it in just a few minutes. Um, but I'm gonna go ahead and mark it. I wasn't going to mark it, but I'll go ahead and mark it because you might take that one. Somebody asked me about that one too, and I sent them my thoughts and my explanation on it. But it is a failed second entry long, but we're a little bit away from the EMA. And the one thing I don't like is this trend line. I got this off the lows, and then you drag it up, and it's fitting right here, but when we come back it pushes on through before it turns down, and it's a first entry and it's a more bullish bar. It is a failed second entry long though, so that would be the only reason I'd even be willing to make that green, but it's just not setting up in a good location in my opinion, and it's real close to that low, and there's some more support across there, so it could be going to bounce, and so I'm just not crazy about that one. But anyway, let's back up. I didn't talk about this one first, but you can see we got lots of resistance right there, and really you got this high right here, and you tested it once, twice. It actually went higher and made a turns down and makes a big bearish bar. Just go short. You could have went short when it went out the bottom of that first bar. Let me make it a little bigger there. Or you could have put a sell stop here right below that bar. I mean, you've tested that enough times to be able to say, hey, we're probably going lower. I would be looking at this for a target first, and if we went on through there, you would expect this to be the target, but that never happens. And we make higher lows from then on, really, at least until this correction right here before we bounced again. So there is an uptrend here, but this looks more like a range. Look how we're on both sides of the EMA. Even we're still right here, and even in through here, the range was still coming into play. And once we went higher here and kept going higher, I just measured the distance on the first part of the range and looked for a measured move. And what do you know? We went directly to that point and turned down. And where do we get our big bounce? Right off the midline of the original. You get a little double test there, and off it goes. And that was the move of the day. If you could catch that, wasn't easy to catch, but if you could, that's the move of the day. So anyway, I wasn't crazy about this. I like this trade. Wasn't crazy about this one. And I really don't think you want to be entering here. We're still inside this trend line. We're not down to the lows. We could bounce back to the EMA, but I don't see a bar there I like with two basically dojis there. This is mostly, this is like a one bar trading range. It closes right in the middle. This one is a true doji closing in the middle. So it's a nice move, but it's not worth risking. And then we just kind of go sideways. The only clue that you notice that this swing low right here is lower than that one. So when you did have a failed second entry short here, but with all that resistance right across there, I'm not crazy about that. When you are making higher lows, notice how things are starting to close above the EMA before it rockets off. So you might consider that one too. But again, I think you're just better off to stay out. I'll mark it, but I just think you're better off to stay out there. It turns out again to be a nice move, but then you get a new high, you get a second entry, a first entry, then a second entry, and it fails. Look at that big bearish bar. It is right into the EMA, but being a trout right there and that being so bearish, I'm still okay. And this, but mainly because it's a failed breakout at this point, because this is a trading range, so I'm going to treat this like a failed break higher. And that's a fairly nice move down. And of course, where does it bounce? It bounces right off this first two swings, and it kind of confirms that trend line, but even so, it bounces right off that midline where we've tested it several times across there and gives you that bullish bar. So I like that one. You actually get a failed second entry short here. This one's not quite back to the EMA, but we just made a break higher, and it looks like this channel is, by this time you've got some pretty good information here that this channel is valid, and this is bouncing off the midline of that channel as well, a two-tiered channel. And you got enough room to get out here, so I think this one's worth risking. And in fact, it ends up going all the way back up to the highs, and then you get your first break of this trend line, and first entry, pull back second entry. There's a second entry long there, right at the EMA, right at the midline. Nice bullish bar. I like that one because we never retested that high. That's a fairly long move right there. So you would expect we'd probably try to test that. And of course we do and get an overshoot at that point. But as I showed you earlier, if you took that measured move, where did we turn down? Right at that measure. We went a few ticks higher, but notice how the closes. So a good bit of selling came in there, and look at this thing sell off. If you catch this one, normally I like a lower high, and this is a good example. Somebody asked me about this one, and you could probably take this one. I didn't mark it. I didn't even mark it green because it's all still inside that trend line, and we are a little bit away from the EMA, but there's too big a chance it turns down, turns back up, and makes that new high, and then turns down just like it did. But in this case, you were lucky enough that if you entered there, you would have got your scalp with no problem. But that doesn't always happen. And you see it did exactly what I was afraid that it might do, or what you would expect it would do. After the break of that trend line, it shoots to a new high, and then it sells off. So by the time we get here, we're really along. Look how far away we are from the EMA. And you get a nice bearish bar. You've had your break. You've had a couple of legs up, but the more than anything, it's that measured move there, and it is an overshoot as well. So it could turn out that you get a big move off that, and of course you do. And look at it go. You get a lower high here, but it's right into these lows. The only way you could enter this, it broke higher and turned and went down if you had a stop, a sell stop right there. But I wouldn't wait on this bar because now you're too close to the trend line. You're too close to these lows. And there's just too much risk at that point. It would have still worked, but you got to be worried if it bounces off this trend line and turns back up again, because you've got a close outside. So if it hits there, you've already got a low in place, and it could just bounce there. So it's not worth risking. But look what happens. We come back to the breakout point, and we test it once, we test it twice, and it actually breaks lower and turns and goes out the other side. I like that, hoping that we're going to run back up and test a new high. But sometimes with an overshoot you don't get that. In this case you did, and you get an easy scalp, but then it turns back down. Um, and if you draw this trend line off these lows here and drag it up, it fits perfect there if you use the close. Most of the time I like to use this up here. So this is not giving you a lot of really good information at this point. It looks valid, and it's turning down right off of it if you use the closes, but you don't have any other touches there. So it's a little risky going short there. It is a failed second entry long, though, so you might risk it there. That's why I made it green, but I'd probably skip that trade. And, of course, now we get the break here, and we move to a new low, and we get a higher low right here. Your stop would have to go below this double bottom, your safety stop, but you could enter on a buy stop one tick above that bullish bar there. Just trying to bounce it off. Hopefully you're catching right off that midline, and maybe it takes back up to this high, which it does. It actually goes higher. So this turns out to be the trade of the day right here. If you catch this one trade, and this was during the quiet hour, just around lunch when it usually gets kind of quiet sometimes. And man, this thing takes off, and you say 27.05 to 27. Just to say you got 27.20 out of it. There's 15 points on that one trade, and it never took any heat at all. I mean, it just rocketed on off. So that was a trade of the day, and it looks like there's a spike in channel. There's a trend line here too, but it spikes up and goes into this channel. But there's several pullbacks to this trend line, but you've been away from the EMA for so long, I'm just not sure if I would be willing to risk it. And so I don't see any entries there, and I don't see anything else before we get into the 2 o'clock hour. So there's a nice reversal pattern right there that would have been a good entry, and ride it on up some more maybe. But that's after 2 o'clock, so I didn't mark it. So, it wasn't the greatest day, but not a bad day. There's some nice trades in here. A couple of nice moves if you catch the right ones. Just remember the most important ones are always off these key entry points, which are the support and resistance areas. And so when you get one that comes together, like two of them right there, or a trend line that meets up exactly with the EMA, that kind of thing, I call that confluence. And when you start to get confluence, like right here, notice that you got the midline, the EMA, both working up right there. That's a good area of confluence, especially on a second entry on top of that. So there's a lot of reasons to like that one and look at it go. But anyway, that's what I saw today. Again, very short and quick week. We'll be back a week from today to do it again, but I'm done for today. I hope you have a great holiday, and we'll be back next Monday. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.